So, okay, guys, what are we talking about today? So we called this in the chat our pre-listing consultation, okay? But I want to be clear on this because when I think of a pre-listing consultation, to me, it's a pre-qualifying consultation. That's the way I interpret it, okay? Now, you can ask different people. They might say the pre-listing consultation is the listing presentation, right? To me, it's broken down even further than just the presentation itself as we know it, because we don't just get to the listing presentation. There's things that happen before that, before we even get to the table that we're sitting on with the family, right? And so I personally like to break it down into stages because not every seller is motivated, right? And why do we do that? We do that because we need to protect our time and their time and to know who we're talking to, right? So the reason I felt today was important to share with you and why we're recording it is because I think we need to go back to the basics of what do we do before we even get to the table with the family? And that's what I call a pre-listing consultation, or we can call it pre-qualifying our listing, okay? So what is the goal, guys? Like what is your goal when you're pre-qualifying a seller? What are some things you guys can share? What is the goal for you as an agent? You can feel free to unmute and share some of your goals when you're on that phone call pre-qualifying a seller.
Finding out what their plans or thoughts or hopes
Absolutely.
or goals are. Yeah.
Sure.
Time frame, that how soon they're going to sell.
Of course. Yeah. So you want to know when, right? Timing. So exactly, guys. So basically we're finding the motivation, right? So when we are speaking to somebody who's going to decide on if they want to list their house for sale, this person that we have, as we know it, is case by case, and the motivation changes per person, okay? When someone messages you or calls you and shows interest, that's the initial stage. Then we have to decide what bucket do they get put in, okay? Are they business now? Are they business in the next season? Or are they business next year, right? And so that's how we determine how we're going to approach them in our next steps, because we're realtors that tailor the experience based on the family. So the motivation is to pre-qualify them over the phone, right? To determine what the motivation is. The reason we're doing this is because we want to save everybody's time. Is this something that we can answer for them over the phone? Is this something that they're just looking to see, for example, you know what, I would be interested in selling for the right price, or I'm just interested in a home evaluation because I need to know where I stand in terms of maybe doing a refinance this year to renovate my house. So I'm not really interested in selling, but I'm interested in knowing what my market, the market says my house is worth, right? So in order to do that, we have to determine what their motivation is in the beginning, right away. So the other reason is a lot of people in our industry, guys, they're part-time. They're not full-time agents. So time is valuable for them. If they can answer a lot of these questions over the phone, they may not meet in person, depending on how the conversation goes, right? So then the first step would be determining what the motivation is. And then the other reason for doing your pre-qualifying is to also get comfortable with them, to build a rapport, get on that first name basis. A lot of the people that you meet moving forward in your career might not be people that are coming from your sphere. These might be strangers you've never met in person. They've heard about you. Maybe they've been referred from a family or friend, potentially a neighbor that's seen you in the neighborhood. They don't know you on that first name basis, right? So in your pre-qualifying, we have to remind ourselves that we need to bring it right down to basics. And instead of us worrying about using a lot of the big jargons that we're used to, like market value, preemptives, blah, 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 blah. These people have a lot of the time have no clue what we're even talking about, right? So what I like to recommend on your pre-qualifying call is to stay away from using big words that might intimidate a family because they don't know it, right? So basically starting off by telling them who you are, what's most important to you, what is most important to the seller, bringing in the emotion and listening. So most of the call is about asking the right questions and receiving a response. It's not necessarily that you're giving away all of your information because you want to save that for your presentation. This is asking and waiting to hear the response so that they can invite you to their home. That's the goal, right? And the way that we do that is through asking the right questions to build a rapport to make them feel comfortable enough to make that appointment. After you've started to build a rapport on the phone call with them, asking them the right questions about themselves, what's important to you, where is it that you're looking to move, how many children do you have any pets, that kind of thing. Get to know their family a little bit, talk a little bit about your family too. How do you relate to them? Are you relatable? Okay. Then you might start to ask a little bit more about the property itself after you've started to build the rapport. Okay, so we've built the rapport, we've understood their motivation. Now we can bring in the property. Okay, what type of property do you own? Where is it? How big is it? Have you done any updates since then? Why are we asking all these questions before we even get to the appointment? Because the worst thing is, guys, we have no clue what the property is about, and we just show up and we're just expected to have all these answers when we get there. The goal is to have all this information ahead so that you can go back, do your CMA, and then leave them with something after your conversation. I find that a lot of agents try to do it all at once at the listing, and you can start kind of tripping over yourself because you're not prepared, right? So we break it down to your pre-qualifying to get the appointment. So when we're asking a little bit about the property, we're asking about how many bedrooms they have. Are there any amenities that they have in their property? What's so special about theirs? What improvements have they done that we should be aware of? Are they living in the property? Is it tenanted? Is there a family member that's living there, right? And then after we've asked a little bit about the property, you'll likely go into basically identifying what the seller's needs are. Okay, so if you notice when we have a conversation, let's say it's you and I having a conversation, maybe it's Jenna and I were having a conversation, I would never ask Jenna first, how much money do you want to make out of your home sale? That would feel so uncomfortable, right? For someone. So that's why we're going through the stages and asking about the seller, identifying their need closer to the end of the call, right? Because you're going to feel more open. Probably when you get on the call with a client, and I've had this before, if I was to abruptly ask them right from the beginning, what is your goal? What do you want? How much money do you want to make for your house? They'd say, well, I want to make $500,000 more than the last person, right? Every seller thinks their house is the best. But if I notice that we wait for this piece, identifying their needs, if we wait to have that in the middle of our conversation, what they said at the beginning of their call is very different now, because now you've made them comfortable. You've made them more open to wanting to have that conversation with you. So I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I jumped on a phone call and it was somebody that I had never spoken to before. I booked a seller consultation with them on the phone. So we booked a 30-minute call and we started having a conversation. Not once in the beginning of my call did I ask them, do they have a mortgage of the property? How much do you own? What did you buy it for? No. At the beginning of our call was, I'm your neighbor. I live in the same area as you. I also have small kids. Where do they go to school? Right. So I'm building that rapport. In the beginning of their call, they said, you know what, Steph, I know for sure my house is worth more than 3 doors down that just sold for 1.3 million. I'm so confident that I'm going to get 1.4. But I didn't ignore what they said. I just got back down to the root, right? And so later I noticed 15 minutes into our call, she started to express to me that actually they were in a financial stress and financial burden. And for them, they had to sell, right? Because she has not been working. She's been caring for her kids. Her husband's been the only person that's supporting this mortgage, and they're in financial stress. Okay. So now her guard, that guard at the beginning of the call has come down, and she felt comfortable to tell me really what is going on. And really the motivation is for her to make enough money to just buy another house that's more affordable. Right? Like at the end of the day, her motivation was, I just need to be able to afford a home for my kids. That's it. It's so simple. Not that she's being a greedy seller, not that she thinks her house is better than everybody else's on the street, but it could have came across that way had I had stayed on the same level as her from the beginning of the call. So we, as the leaders in our industry, our job is to lead them through self-discovering through the call to make them comfortable enough for us to meet them in person, right? This is a more natural approach. My approach, guys, is not for everybody. There are other people in the industry that do it way different than me. There are people in the industry that are just focused on getting the appointment. For me, longevity is more important. And so that's why I wait and I have conversations with people, because there's some people that say, are you ready to list your house for sale? Perfect. Can I come over on Friday and I'm going to talk to you and then I'm going to list it and then it's going to go up for sale. And then what? They don't want to list with you because now you've scared them. They're uncomfortable. They don't know if they're coming or going. They've got kids here. They've got maybe elderly parents. You might be working with an elderly couple. Like, you know, at the end of the day, it comes down to asking the right questions in sequence. So let's just kind of go back to what we talked about. So we talked about their motivation. We got on a first name basis with them. We asked a little bit about the property, and now we're going to identify their needs, right? After we do that, we need to start creating a solution for them, right? And so basically, they're not going to want to work with us, guys, if we don't have a solution for them, right? Most of the time, somebody is selling their home and they want to work with somebody who's going to give them a solution, right? So this is kind of where your seller will naturally start to tell you why they're selling their house, right? And so our job is to structure our services around why they're selling their house. That's our job. We're structuring our services around why a seller wants to sell their house. And it's going to be different every time. Not every listing is the exact same, right? So they might start to digress to you what's the reason for them selling, and every situation is going to be different. But what I want to just suggest to anybody on this call is, if you're listening to this, it's tailor your approach per family. And the only way of doing that is to ask the right questions in your pre-qualifying. Okay. So the other reason for this pre-qualifying call is you'll quickly notice the ones who are determined to sell now and those who are just looking to know market value versus those who are just in the middle of starting to think about it. Okay. And so maybe you don't need to meet with them in person right away. And you, as the professional, will determine that after this call. So if I have a family who says to me, Steph, you know what, I'm not actually ready to list right now. I just wanted to get some clarity from you on the market and really know, you know, what am I up against? What are some things I need to do first? I can do that over the phone, right? And then maybe it's another second. And then I might have to do this pre-qualifying call 2 or 3 times before I meet them in person. It's not just today and we meet them for an appointment. And if you do get that, then that's obviously the goal. Our goal is we need to also have listings, etc. But I'm just saying that the timing has to be catered to the family. Okay. So if you have a seller who is motivated and who is very serious on the phone, you will probably start to ask them a few more questions like, if I was to come to your home, would you be ready to sign a listing? How ready are you? How motivated are you? Are we talking in the next month or 2 months? So you can ask them before you meet them in person, when would be the ideal time for you to list your home for sale? Would you be ready right away? That helps you understand, are you going there with a listing kit? Like, are you going with full forms ready for them to sign? Or are you not preparing all of that ahead of time? Okay, so they'll start to give you answers if they are ready, if they need a little bit more time. Maybe they're thinking another month or 2 from now. You could start talking about the opportunity to maybe do an exclusive with them. You can present that in person. If I notice that the family is probably going to be looking to sell in the next 3 months, I would go in person, right? The thing is the market changes so often, especially in this market now, that if this family is not ready to sell till January and we're in March, I'd probably rebook that for a later time so I can give them proper market information at the time so that it's relevant, right? So then there's that piece. So the other thing I'm going to share with you are some questions, like pre-qualifying questions you can ask a seller. What are some pre-qualifying questions you can ask a seller over the phone before you head into an appointment? So I mentioned one of them to you, which would be, if you are planning to list your home for sale, when would that be? What does the ideal time frame look like for you? This is another really important question. Will you be interviewing more than one agent to list your home? Am I the only one that you've considered, right? That question is important for us to know because we need to know who else are we up against, right, for this listing? And how are you going to stand out? Because guys, time and time again, I'm sure you have been as well. I've been at listing presentations where I'm up against massive teams. What am I doing different? What is my value? Why would I want to list with me? Why would you want to list with you? Maybe it's more time. Maybe you have more time. Maybe you have more compassion. Maybe you've been where they've been before. What is your value? What value do you bring? And so, not that we're looking to compete. It's not a competition when you're asking the question. You need to know who else am I working with? Guys, if you went to a store and you saw this cell phone for sale and somebody else is giving it to you at the store for a different price, you're going to ask why, right? Why is this being sold here and this is being sold here? They're both offering the same product, but what does Rogers or Bell do different than one another? We want to know the value behind what we're paying for. Of course, that is their right as a homeowner to know their value and what does that look like. And so, working with Keller Williams, we're a full service brokerage, right? And so the questions of commission may come up on your pre-qualifying questions. And that is a question that I would highly recommend you wait to discuss at the table. I wouldn't be giving that up over the phone, okay? And it's because you have value and it's because you do come from a full service brokerage and they need to see that in person. And then this goes into also the listing presentation, which we have another video on, you can go back and look at. But if they start talking things about commissions and all of that, I like to save that for the conversation in person. And so I would suggest that you guys do that as well, just so that they're not pre-qualifying you over the phone, right? Like you want to get in person so that you can continue this conversation on. Another question that I talked about earlier was, where will you be moving to? Right? So that you know what their end goal is, because your job is to get them to that end goal. Where are you moving to next? Have you even thought of that? How soon do you have to be there is another great question to determine how long, how long it takes to list a house for sale, how long in the market that you're in right now to sell it, to then determine how long it's going to take to get them to their next home. So you have to break that down for them. The other question that's important too to ask is, if we do meet in person, right? So you're trying to book the appointment now. If this is a motivated seller, at this point, guys, you'll know if this person is motivated. Like if they're going to look to list in the next 3 months, you're likely going to try to book the appointment, right? So you're going to ask them, when is the best time that we can meet in person? And I'd like to ask that anybody who is on title of this property, which you probably have looked at on Geo Warehouse ahead of time, is present, right? We want to make sure that anybody that is on this house on title in Geo Warehouse is present for our meeting in person. They're all the decision makers at the end of the day. So we don't want to just be talking just to the wife or just to the husband. And then maybe, it's now broken telephone and the wife's like, but did you ask this of her? Or did he ask this of you? And we forgot to ask the right questions. And so we say, when is the best time that you will all be home in order for us to meet? And some of your clients might not want to meet in person. So you're doing this on Zoom. I just had a listing presentation on the weekend over Zoom, and it worked well as long as everybody's is there present. So the other thing that they might ask you is what do I need to have prepared, right? What do they need to have prepared for you before you get to your listing appointment? And most of the times what I'll ask of them is a copy of their most recent tax bill. I'll also ask them to have a list of any recent updates that they've done to their house, if they can prepare that for me, or any warranties or things that are important to them, especially if it's big ticket items, right? Like if they've just installed a brand new liner, if they just did a whole kitchen reno, if they've done a remodel of their home. These are important things for them to have present and available before our presentation. And the other thing that I might ask them too is to also have, like, depending if we're going to be signing the listing that day, they need to also provide, of course, their driver's licenses and things like that as well, right? And any rental items, things that are on rental, I would get them to explore that ahead of time before our listing. And the reason we're doing that is because if we can determine that there's more than one item that's on a rental contract, I want to be able to, on the listing presentation, explain to them what their next steps are with those rental items. Either they're buying them out, and what are the pros and cons of doing that? And what are their next steps if it's more than just the hot water tank that's on rental? Because it could cause bigger conversations down the road, right? So we want to ask them, what rental items do you have? And if you have any contracts of those items, please bring them forward in our presentation. The other important thing to ask them is if they have any pressing questions that they need answered right now. Right? So before your call ends, you're going to ask them, what I would like for you to have all your questions ahead of time. And I'm giving you this opportunity to really think about the things that are important to you and any questions or concerns that you may have. I'd love to be able to address those at the listing, right? If there's anything more immediate that they need answered, you can ask them over the phone. But if it's things that you notice that you're going to get really deep into, how you're going to market it, when it's going to be live, how many people are coming through the house, like those are things that you do on the listing presentation, right? But I would just say to them, if you have any questions, if you and your spouse have any questions, please have them prepared for our presentation. And lastly, what I say to them, or what you can say is, I'm going to be dropping off a copy of my seller's guide in advance, so that if there are any extra questions, at least this will help you if they haven't already been answered in my guide. So you can drop off a seller's guide to the family after you've pre-qualified them over the phone, before you meet them in person. So that's basically 30 minutes of how I would pre-qualify a seller, right? Now, say the seller isn't ready for an appointment and they're just looking for information. This is where I would add them to a database, and I would stay in touch with them very often. Probably every few weeks, I would stay in touch. How's it going? Do you need anything else? I want to giving them market information, right? Like staying in touch. And so you can put them in your warm lead bucket, right? So I like to call it a warm lead bucket, somebody that you're going to stay nurturing. If there's somebody that has no plans on selling at all this year, and you can feel that they're not ready, right, in this stage of their life, that's okay. We put them maybe in another bucket, like our colder lead bucket, what I like to call, and maybe that's somebody that you reach out to every few months, right, just to say hello. But remember, it might be business for next year, so they still deserve to be nurtured, just not, it doesn't mean no, it just means no, not right now, right? And so based on our questionnaire, when we're asking these questions, it will help you so that you're not wasting your time and energy meeting with people who are not motivated, right? The goal is, again, to determine the motivation. Are there any questions as we're going through this, guys? Any aha moments or things that you want more clarity on as we go on? Who uses this type of questionnaire or this type of process in their business? Or are you just doing it in one shot, everything in one shot?
Honestly, it's my experiences have been haywire compared to, like, they don't follow the what I was expecting, how things were I was expecting to go. Like my first request from somebody, she got a postcard in the mail, and then she called me asking me to come by in the next couple of days to list her house, like we'd never even spoken. And like all of a sudden she wanted to do something. But it's like in any business, people like that usually aren't really ready. So I'm still waiting to hear back. But the thing with her is that her name isn't even on title. And I haven't been able to arrange an in-person meeting with her to kind of get down to the bottom. Like I dropped off the seller guide. I, talked to her a few times on the phone, emails back and forth. But I don't even know why she's selling the house, because she's not on title.
And exactly, and that would be a little bit of a red flag for sure, right? Because is it her husband? Like who's on the other side, right?
It's another woman's name. So
Is
like
she the
her
daughter
name
or something, or
could be, yeah,
could be
that's
the
what
daughter,
I'm
maybe she's
thinking.
just
But yeah, like I haven't, and then I just all three of the sellers that I'm kind of just trying to manage in the background, they're all kind of like that. Just, one of them, I've been corresponding with her by email for months now. And she's like, interested in selling their current house and moving, but she doesn't give me her phone number. I've offered so many times to go and meet with her and talk to her about her current home, or to show her properties that I'm sending her information on, and nothing. It's all email.
I think maybe she doesn't feel comfortable just yet. Could be comforting,
like
right? I find that as
right.
well. I find people, and in this industry, you'll learn it quickly, like, as you know, and even for me, if I was to work with a realtor, I would be nervous if I was just communicating with them over email, right? Of course, like, especially when it comes to your home, you're letting someone in your house, right? Like, it's not like you're letting them into a, even your car, I wouldn't let it, but like, you know what I mean? It's, you're not letting them into a space that's public, right? Like, this is your home. And so maybe she may feel more comfortable. I've had this in the past where I've had people say, can we meet in person? I just don't want to meet at my house. I've had people that are divorcing that they're not comfortable having this conversation in their home. Please use our space, guys. We have 3 offices, okay? Meet them in your office. It is a more professional setting. Maybe that's what they need. Maybe they need that transitional piece. They might be slower to it, right? So slower. So maybe you say to her, hey, listen, would you like to grab a coffee at my office in Aurora? I'd love to treat you for a coffee. Come in. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I actually have some really great resources I can share with you. There's a few houses that have recently sold in your neighborhood. Come by, let's have a coffee. Just get to know one another. So many people right now have been locked up in their houses. They're terrified. It might be relieving for this person to say, shoot, I actually have plans. I have plans on Saturday. I'm going for coffee with Eileen, right? Like,
it's no, I've tried that. I've tried asking her out for coffee, come see you for coffee.
Yeah.
But
she'll come around. And I think it just takes time to like nurture them in a way that doesn't sound like you're trying to sell them, right? I find that that's the huge key right there. It's more like, how do I want to work with you? And I don't worry, I'm not going to sell you, like I'm here to have a conversation with you. I'm trying to protect your asset, the thing is, you remember guys, like not everybody in this industry, not a lot of people that we list their homes for sale are all very wealthy. We have to remember that. A lot of people, guys, in our country, right, are not billionaires. Okay. So their house is probably one of the biggest things that they own, and they need to put it in your hands. For us, it's not just a transaction. I know that we talk in our industry about numbers and you got to hit this and that and that. You're going to do it. Let that go. We know we're going to do it. We have to remember, people are trusting us, not with a Starbucks coffee. This is their life. They've had children here. They've had grandbabies here. They now have to be redirected. I have a family, 75 and 80 years old. These people are like, what? You're going to sell my house? Like, I'm not ready to move. I have to part with this place. It's a big process. And if it doesn't happen overnight, that's honestly, guys, 80% of the families are not going to be like quick to make a decision, like boom, 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 boom. So it's going to be harder for you to convert. It's not as easy to convert, right? A home. So if you get that 20%, it's bonus. But I think we need to get comfortable being uncomfortable working with people who are uncomfortable. That's the goal. I don't even know what I just said. Get comfortable being uncomfortable with people. I'm going to write that down. That was a good one. I might post it on my Instagram later. Jen is dying of laughter over there. But it's true, right? Though, like, honestly, like if we think back at those questions, like when we jump on a phone call, if we're meeting somebody off a dating site, not that I've ever done this before, but if you're meeting somebody off of a dating site and like you're getting on the call with them, it's like, am I going to ask them right away? Like if they've been married before? Well, maybe if I've been married 3 times, but like, I want to get to know them. You know what I mean? Like, I want to know what's up, what's going on. Why do you want to sell? Maybe they're not supposed to sell. Can you imagine you were the person that told them you're not even supposed to sell right now? It's a bad idea. They'd probably want to sell because you said that. You know what I mean? But like, if you really think about it, not every person is meant to sell their home, right? And so I've been on seller consultations where I've said, you know what? Can you keep it? Maybe you keep it. Maybe it's not the right time for you to sell. And I'm telling you, those are the people that are going to call you because they feel comfortable when they are ready. I've told people that are elderly, you know what? This market's insane. If you're going to be in the 75-year-olds trying to be in bidding wars right now, that's hard. That's hard to explain it to people who are elderly. Maybe it's not their time right now, right? If you notice that right away, trust your gut, guys. Like, go with your gut. I know you want to sell a bunch of real estate, and that's going to happen in your career. But the repeat and the referral that comes out of being authentic and really getting to the root of if it's good for them, it'll be good for you. You know what I mean? Bella has a question.
Yes, just a quick question. So let's say there are a couple on the title, and when we are asking to have both like decision makers ready for the meeting, and the wife says, you know what, my husband is too busy and I'm the one make the decision on that, so I would be enough to be at the meeting. Is it okay to just go by that, or we have to insist on that, having the husband the meeting too?
There's no harm in you giving information,
Uh-huh.
right, to one person, because you don't know if that husband and wife have something going on. We don't know. We can assume, right? Is she on title too?
Yeah, let's say both of them.
Yeah, of course you can. Absolutely. Absolutely, you can do that. You can meet with one person, and then if her husband's ready after, they can meet together. I was saying earlier about meeting them at the same time, just to protect your time, right? It would be
Yes.
ideal if both are there at the same time, just so that your information doesn't get missed and questions are answered on the spot. It's easier if they're both there, right? But if you have a couple that wants time separate, of course you can do that. You can tailor that approach for sure.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to say, like, I personally don't feel comfortable to like go through all the meetings and conversation with just one
Yes.
person from the couple, because God knows, you know, maybe, as you said, there's something going on, and the second person has no clue that she's trying to sell the
It
house.
can bite you after, right? It can. And let's brainstorm, guys, for a second. How many different situations we've had where, you know, maybe you have explained yourself professionally, and perhaps that person that you've explained it to wasn't able to explain it as good as you did. And so that could come across that maybe you didn't give all the information up professionally with knowledge. So that's why I like to say everybody at the same table around the same time, right? When I'm coming to meet you, and they have time to plan this out. You don't have to book it the next day. You could book it a few days out, right? But my concern is when they're not both present is that information can get missed or relayed inaccurately. And as a result can be a reflection on you, right?
Yes. Well, I'm mostly concerned about matrimonial homes.
Absolutely.
Just one person on title, and you're so confident that you are, you know, having the conversation with the right person.
Yes.
I've heard so many scary stories
Yes.
about that one person was trying to sell the house.
Sure.
While it was a matrimonial home. So
I have the same thing happening to me this week. So I had a conversation with her yesterday. It is a matrimonial home. They're in the middle of a separation and a divorce. They have 2 children. Same thing, Bella. And during our seller consultation, I said to her, this is the expectation, which is if it's okay with you and you feel safe to do so, I would like to meet you both together. Would that be okay with you? And guys, if it's not safe, like, you might want to co-list this, right? You might want to have 2 agents representing, one for him and one you, depending, right? Again, on your consultation, you're going to find the solution. That's your goal. Ask, present them with what you think, get the feedback of how they feel. And if it's not going to work, find resources. Maybe it's not just you. Maybe you're going with another agent that's more experienced, that has done matrimonial homes in the past. Maybe you're co-listing it with another agent to give them equal representation, right? But I would like to say that it's, you try to meet them together. At the end of the day, they both need to know what's going on, and there's going to be showings in that house. So what does that look like? Who's home? Who's not going to be home? Like, it's too confusing when there's no communication, right? So the goal of that is to set the expectation for the listing as it's going live. And what does that look like moving forward? So everybody's on the same page. Nobody's gonna say, she didn't tell me, he didn't tell me, I don't know, she doesn't know what she's doing. No, we're all gonna sit together, we're all gonna talk. And if something's concerning to him or to her, we have to address it. We're customizing, again, I said this in the beginning of the call, we're customizing our approach for the family, for the solution, right? So I love that, Bella. I think that's a great solution for you if you have that come up. If you need to co-list it, great. If they do not feel comfortable meeting in person, there's options for them, right? And we can talk about that off the call as well, for sure.
thank you.
So I just want to leave this to you guys. We have another 10 minutes, 15 minutes. There's something going on here in the chat. Arden, what did he say? What was he laughing about, Arden?
I think she was laughing at when you said, let's get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Being uncomfortable. with people who are.
And then you're like,
uncomfortable.
wait, what did I even say? I don't know.
Yeah, what did I even say? I might add that to my Instagram later. I don't know. Just stuff she says on there. I might just take some snippets of this call. People will laugh at me.
That's
Like
actually a saying that we used to use at yoga teacher training.
Come
It's a-
on, I thought I
it's a
made it
yoga
up.
thing.
How
It's
does
like,
it
get
go?
comfortable being uncomfortable and apply it to your life, not just the poses, right?
That's what it means. Yes, I said
Yeah.
getting comfortable being uncomfortable with people who are uncomfortable, aka our sellers, because a lot of them have never even been through this before. This is their first time. I'd be scared shitless too. I'd be like, this is the person that's going to take me through selling this house. I've never sold. You have some people who've had the same house for 60 years. Like now all of a sudden how is she going to do it? Right. So build that value prop. That's huge. That's gold. When you can secure that, guys, you got it, after that. But honestly, like pre-listing for me, the pre-listing appointment is more important than the actual appointment itself. It sets the tone for sure. Okay, Jenna has something to say. What does Jenna have to say?
I have something to say.
Yeah. Share with us your wins. How are you doing your pre-listing questionnaire
I
conversation?
mean, I've never done one, hence why I'm on the call.
Good. You're
'Cause I haven't had one
gonna
yet.
rock it now.
Yeah,
You're
I hope
actually
so.
gonna do one.
I know. I need
People
to
don't
find
even do
clients.
one. Yeah. There's some people who don't even do one. They just so focused on getting that appointment and they try to do it all there. And honest to God, if that's how you want to run it, you could totally do it that way too. This is just another method. You can run your businesses, guys, however you want. This is just another way to do it that kind of leads you into your appointment if you're finding somebody who's not sure.
It was funny because I was thinking today, like, I need to find sellers because I can't find things for my buyers to buy right now. I need to find sellers, but I think I've been so intimidated by finding sellers because then I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do when I find a seller.
Yeah, and it's true. And you might even and you know what's crazy is you might even just find your own way. You might find your own system, your own way that works for you. Like there's stuff that I've pulled, guys, from like Mike Ferry, and I've pulled other concepts from other people in our industry who have these really great questionnaires. Some of them don't fit in the time that you're having the conversation, so you just don't ask them, right? And so you just kind of customize it per call. You might be speaking to an investor that has no motivation other than to make a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
So gear it to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it kind of goes with what's their motivation, which is why that's the first thing we get down to on our call. What is the motivation? And then it's like a tree. So it could go this way or it could go this way. How are we, right? How are we branching off after we find this, which is the motivation?
Right.
And then you lead your conversation after that into it. Who else? I want to hear from someone else. Paula, how are you?
Good. I find one thing that, how you said, create a solution for your
Yes.
sellers. And that's where I'm finding it hard because the two that I'm sort of working with, they are ready to sell, but their solution is to downgrade and find something cheaper. And there's nothing cheaper.
Right.
So then I feel awkward offering them, like one of them wants to move to Oakville where there's nothing under like $2 million for a bungalow that they want. So I feel silly saying, oh yeah, look, this is all I have for you. So I don't know what
it's so true.
Offer them.
It's so true. So even for myself too, I have a lot of families that are on the sidelines saying, I'm not going to list for sale until I find my buy, right? So here's where it kind of hurts as a seller because you have this motivation of you think you're going to be able to afford this home in this area that you've been dreaming about. And not that we're squashing their goal, but we have to give them, we're the information vessel, right? So even if that house is 2 million, maybe you share it with them. Like this is what this is going to get you in the area that you really want to live in. And so if it's not that you want to increase your mortgage, which that is not their goal, can we look in another area that you can buy in? Like what is more, do they have to live in Oakville? Maybe if they found their dream home, they would be willing to locate somewhere else, like, is the location the only thing? If the location is the only thing, then they have to change the style of home that they're looking for, right? So there's two options
Or
for
that's
them.
what it's been, yeah. It's
You're
only
giving
that.
them the option. They have to decide which one is it. Is it just Oakville? If it's just Oakville, well, this is what Oakville gets you for your price point, right? Somebody, and also prices at a glance seem a little lower than them. They're selling them in reality. Absolutely. Yes. And exactly. And this is what we talk about for sure in our listing appointment as well. And so the one thing I want to share with you is we're not necessarily supposed to find them a solution. We are giving them options for the solution, and then they choose. And if it doesn't matter, if any of the options we give them, they don't want, then we're not going to move to the next step, because we want to work with motivated sellers, right? We want to work with motivated people, not anybody who are forcing or coercing to do something that's uncomfortable. Our job is to give them a bunch of options, different solutions. And if they say, well, I don't want to not move to Oakville, I'm not spending $2 million. I'm not, they're not ready to sell right now. And that's okay. And that's an example of a family who we might say, you know what, it's not the right time for you. And that's okay. It just might not be in this type of market. We don't know what the summer or the winter months in the future are going to look like. We don't know if the market might shift or change. Maybe in a few months or a few years from now, they might say, you know what, I'm ready to go into a condo at this point. I don't care for a bungalow. We want to travel. Life changes for people. What my goal was of a house, guys, last year, now after everything that's happened recently, I want to be free. I don't want a big house anymore. Had you have asked me this last year, I'd say I want a custom home on it. Now I'm like, no, a little place here, a little place here. I want to go and travel, you know? So your motivation changes. It changes, and that's okay. It just might not be the right time right now, right? So those are the types of families we might put on our warm list, or a little colder of a list, that are not ready right now, but still need to be nurtured. And they're likely, guys, we'll notice it. It's just time for self-discovery at that point, after we've shared with them information, you know? I'm just looking at the chat here. Yeah, it's definitely confusing for sure to the public, right, Eileen? Like when they don't know, especially aging populations, like they're not familiar with this market. Anybody else have any other comments or questions, things that they're struggling with? How about getting to the appointment, right? Getting to the appointment of having a conversation, just a conversation about it.
Well, just for me, like I was saying before, it's like, it's not a question of like speeding these people up. It's more like slowing them down. Like by the time they call me, they're already like saying, okay, let's the place tomorrow. And it's like, hold on a second. What about all these steps that I need to
and you know, it's so true, Eileen, right? Like I think, and that's another piece of us as realtors being the educators, where it's like, you know, listing a house for sale isn't necessarily one day. I mean, we can do it that way, right? But I think people like to call us when they're really ready and they don't want to bother us before then. And they think it's a bother to have those conversations with us until they're ready, right? It's that assumption piece where they're like, I'm not going to call Eileen until I'm serious. Like there's families that I just really don't want to bother her. Like we're not even ready right now. We have to get some things done in the house. It's like, no, I wish you called me when you were getting things done in the house, because I could tell you what to not focus on and what to focus on, right? But people tend to not want to bother us as realtors and as professionals. They think we're busy or we don't have the time. And let your people know, you know, like it's okay if you call me and we just walk through your house and I can give you some suggestions on things that you can improve, right? Absolutely, Bella. We will do that next Thursday. That is our Thursday call, my friend. You must have already known what I was doing. You read my mind. Yeah, guys, next week, Thursday, we're going to talk about buyers. Everybody loves buyers. I like buyers, guys. I like working with buyers. I don't mind them. You know, I like seeing houses too. And I think it's important for us to have something like this for our buyers. Like, you know, next week, we're going to talk a little bit about what questions do we ask buyers? How do we get them ready before we even get them out there? Get them ready before we get them out there, right? That's what we're doing. Because again, as much as we don't want to waste time and efforts on a listing that they're not motivated for, we also don't want to waste time with buyers who are not ready or prepared for this market right now. So next week, we're going to be doing the same thing, finding motivated buyers who are ready and qualified to go, because it's a busy market, right? And there's not a lot on the inventory for sale as we know it. So we really need to make sure that somebody's ready. And if they're not, how do we put them on a plan to get them ready, right? I like that. I really love the saying, guys. No doesn't mean no, it just means no right now. So with the no right nows, what are we doing with those people? Because you want business next year and the year after, right? It's not just the transaction for today. It's the no right nows for later that we're focusing on as well. Are there any other questions other than that, Bella, Stacy, Jenna, Arden?
I have one.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, hun.
I just wanted to know in a training, which is going to be about the buyer, are we going to learn like how to manage the meeting that we're going to have? Let's say we already pre-qualify them over the phone and we're going for a meeting and we are not sure that we are the only agent that is going to be interviewed. So how are we going to win that meeting to make sure that they're going to hire us?
Yeah.
Like exactly about the buyer presentation meeting.
Yes, so we're going to chat about that on Thursday too. So please bring that forward. Anything that you guys need to know about buyers will be discussed on Thursday next week. Absolutely. And we can chat about that because there's different approaches. Just like how we talked about today with this pre-listing qualification consultation, everyone's running their business differently when they're working with buyers as well. So we can discuss that on Thursday as well.